Hi, Nancy here, and right now I'm going to teach you how to do the Kitchener Graft. The Kitchener Graft, I believe it was a soldier in World War II whose name was Kitchener, and a British soldier, I believe, and there was a certain way he liked his socks, and when women made socks for their men back in the war, they requested that this type of toe be duplicated, and forever it was known as the Kitchener Graft. It's very easy to do as long as what you're doing you say out loud and you are not interrupted while you do it. That's really the key to it. You can't be interrupted when you do this one. So make sure the kids aren't around, the phones aren't ringing. The trick is you have to have the same amount of stitches on each needle. You can't have an odd number. And don't pull it too tight. You're better off tightening it when you're done, okay? And this is how I do it. Okay, I keep mine on the needle. Some people are very daring and they take their stitches off the needle. I am not that person. You can use the yarn that's attached to your project to do this, but for the sake of demonstration, I am going to use fresh yarn in a different color so you can see what I'm doing, okay? So the first stitch, okay, I am going to enter this stitch and I'm going to say each stitch as I come to it, how I handle it, so that you can do the same thing. Okay, the first stitch I went in as if to purl. And always go under the needles. The back stitch I'm going in as if to knit. Okay? The front needle I am going to knit off, purl on. The back stitch, let me get a little more thread here. The back stitch I am going to purl off, knit on. Okay. The front stitch I will knit off, purl on. Back stitch, purl off, knit on. Front stitch, knit off, purl on. Back stitch, purl off, knit on. Front stitch, knit off, purl on. Back stitch, purl off, knit on. Front stitch, knit off, purl on. Back stitch, purl off, knit on. Front stitch, knit off, purl on. Back stitch, purl off, knit on. Front stitch, knit off, purl on. Back stitch, purl off, knit on. Now, as you can see already here, what I'm doing, what I have done is I have created a row of stockinette stitches. Okay? Now I'm going to go back and tighten them up. Okay? I may at this point tighten them up just a bit so that you can see how, you see how I'm kind of rocking them? I'm going to get some more yarn going here. I'm going to bring this around. You see how I'm pulling them up and down and up? And you want to match up the other knitting. You want it to look the same. You don't want it to look smaller, you don't want it to look bigger, you want it to look the same. Okay. Okay. So far, so good. It's a good idea to kind of give it a peek as you're going along here anyway, just to make sure you're on the right track here. Okay, so now let's see where we're at here. So this one was a pearl, that was a knit on. So the front is going to be knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Okay, knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on. Okay. Okay, so we're going along quite nicely here. So now we're going to knit off, purl on, purl off, knit on, 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 knit off, purl off. Now I will show you the final result. Okay, we'll fiddle a little here, we'll fiddle a little there, and that's really what it is. But as you can see, if you get these too tight, it's much more difficult to loosen them up than it is to tighten them up. This is probably one of the oldest seams there is, really. And the way I say, every time I do Kitchener Graft, I do exactly the way I did the video. I have to do it that way or I get screwed up every time. Okay, that was a little goofy. I just want to show you how to do this. Alright, and then, okay, and then, alright, so, yeah, that one should be fiddled with a little more. I need to adjust that one a little more on the end. Okay, but for the most part here, I'd have to tweak a little here and a tweak a little there. But that is how you do the Kitchener Graft on live stitches.